Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I'm back with another Quick Card Monday today. We're going to make 6 cards in about 12 minutes and there's a surprise interactive element in there. And then let's go ahead and dig in. So today I'm playing with some die cut pieces that Spellbinders sent to me. These look like a lot of fun. They're gorgeous and they're super easy. And the interactive element that is an option here, and it's totally optional, comes together really quickly. All of these came in the same pack. It's the Dancin Watercolor Celebrations, and there are 4 like complete girls, and then there are the same 4 but with the legs separated, and so you can make these little like Dancin pieces for your cards without having to die cut a ton of stuff. So I have the Essential Modern Ovals. It's this sort of long, skinny oval and 3 pieces of pattern paper. And I just stacked all 3 of those pattern paper pieces up. They're probably about 65 pounds. And I'm going to cut through the center of them all at the same time, right? So then I also cut 3 coordinating pieces of colored cardstock with the oval that is 1 size bigger. And we are just going to make really simple cards that let these die cut pieces do all the work. But here's the thing, it's an interactive card. I've heard from some of you that you don't really like ephemera, and I'm with you. Like, I would prefer a die cut something most of the time, but I still think these are really special. So we're gonna play around and kind of see how it goes. I'm just mixing and matching. On some of these, I changed the color of the larger oval. On the green one, I kind of kept it the same, this little tone on tone. And then I'm just trying to decide which colors are gonna let the die cut Dancin people pop a little bit more. And once I get that all figured out, then I'm just kind of putting everything together. So I'm not gonna show you like all of them start to finish. It'll get a little bit repetitive, but I'll give you a good look at how I'm putting these 3 together. And then we're gonna make 3 more that have the same kind of die cut pieces, but show you different ways to play with them. So I have added the base of my pattern paper onto my card base. It's just a top folding A2. You could do side folding, it doesn't really matter. And then I am gluing on the pattern paper oval onto the cardstock oval. This is my 2-inch foam roll from scrapbook.com. I was like, this is perfect. It is ever so slightly narrower than the oval that I chose. Really, when I was picking my oval, I wanted one that was about as tall as it could get for an A2 because these die cuts are pretty tall and I wanted to make sure it would fit all the way onto my ovals. Then I've got a little bit of wet glue just to help me line it up. This is like a faux dip dye situation. I think it's maybe Stampin' Up! Paper from a long time ago. And I thought it went beautifully with these watercolor die cuts. So I'm just trying to line it up so that the line of washed color is even when I go to add the oval. I'll do the same thing with this green one. And then with the blue one, look guys, I got fancy. I flipped it upside down. I was like, I kind of like the look of that. I surprise myself sometimes. So I'll add that one down again with the foam tape, little bit of glue for wiggle room. And then we can start putting the interactive element together. So what I'm gonna do is set my die cut pieces on there where I want them and then remove the top, and I'm gonna put a penciled circle right where the legs are gonna swing, right? So that I know where to put the foam dot. Then I tape the legs to the top piece. Look, I'm gonna do this again, right? Circle on the base. I'll tape the legs and the top together so I can flip it over. And again, I know where that circle is gonna be. I wanna make sure I'm not putting my foam too close to the legs. You'll see why. I'm gonna forget my own advice here in a hot minute. Once I have that all figured out, I am gonna double up the legs. There are enough pieces to make 8 Dancin girls. So there's 2 tops and 2 pairs of legs for each of the 4 types. But I find that the legs swing better if they're a little heavier. And so to me, I would rather make 4 cards where the interactive element swings really well than 8 cards where it doesn't swing that great. Okay, and then I'll repurpose the tops on some other kind of card. If you have a foam dot, you can use that, but I used my Easy Peel foam tabs on the tops of the girls. And so I just cut circles out of a scrap of that. and I will stick that right over that pencil mark I made. I'm going to put the legs on there and make sure that it swings. And then I'm going to remove the backing from the tab, and that little piece of foam right there, that one's naughty. He's too low. When I go to add this onto my card, it's going to overlap the very top of the legs, and look, it doesn't move. It doesn't move right at all. So I am very carefully, like ever so carefully, just going to shove my little pokey tool in there until I can peel that one off, and now it swings beautifully. So I'm going to do this one without messing it up. You can see I've left more space above the circle that I added to the skirt. That's really important. All right. And that's also why I like to pencil that in there. So I have a sense of like how far down things can go. So I add the legs over the foam circle and then the skirt and whatever she's holding on top of that. I thought I was going to use emergency sentiments for this. Like I have them just off to the left of my camera, but there's sentiments in here. There's happy birthday and celebrate and hello and a bunch of stuff, right? And so I just kind of played around until I liked them. I'm adding a little bit of foam to the right-hand side of these just to make sure it's even. Otherwise, it's going to lean and be all cattywampus on there. Then I was feeling super fancy. You guys, I added bling. I never do that. Like maybe it's because I forget, or maybe it's because I'm so bad at figuring out where they go. But now they sparkle. This is the crystal mix. And then on this one, there's these little like dewdrops. I'll link everything in the description box below, but that will finish up those first 3 cards. I love it for making multiples without them being absolutely identical, because something about that just doesn't keep my interest. So let me know, do you make multiples of the exact same card, or do you guys like to switch it up? So on this next one, we're starting with some of that same like faux dip dyed paper, and I'm just going to glue that straight onto an A2 card base. And then I wanted to create sort of a fun center focal piece, and I've used this slimline die from scrapbook.com. I used the middle one and then cut a 2-inch strip of light blue cardstock that's going to fit perfectly right down the middle. This is the happy birthday background stamp from My Favorite Things, and I'm going to use this to stamp on this light blue paper. I'm lining it up on the stamp first just to make sure that my text is going to be straight, and then I will flip my Misty onto that. I have a sticky mat in there, and I'm going to stamp over it in white ink. I tell you what, guys, I stamped this like 3 times and it still was a little too light. So I didn't anticipate that I was going to heat emboss this, but in the end, I threw a bunch of white embossing powder, got lucky that the letters were still pretty crisp, and then I heat set it. On camera, I always pull my embossing powder out onto my desk and I show you guys that whole process. But for Quick Card Monday, or if I'm just making cards for myself, they're actually in a little drawer by my desk, and all of that embossing happens over a bin inside the drawer, and it's brilliant because then I don't end up with embossing powder all over my desk. One of my very favorite things. So back to our card, I used my 2-inch foam roll and I ran that right down the back of the blue scallop piece. I glued the emboss panel down the center of that, and I'm just adding it to my card. Then I have the perfect spot for my girl. Now this is from the same set we've been using. It's just that this one doesn't dance. Again, there's one of each that doesn't dance. And I kind of like that because there's all these other pieces like some presents, this Make-A-Wish. And if it's the dancing ones, I can't put those down by her feet. It's going to run into them. It's going to impede the movement. And so this was perfect because I knew I wanted to use this big yellow present. I put a tiny little sliver of foam down the left-hand side of that just because it's overhanging like that centerpiece that's popped up and then the background that isn't. And then I'll use wet glue for everything else. I'm finishing up with these opal sequins. Of all of the sparkly things that Spellbinders makes, I think these are my favorite. It easily finishes up card number 4. You guys, here's card number 5 and 6. So there's a whole separate pack of these watercolor dancing girls that's for holidays. And I know we're out of season. I get it, but I thought they were super cute, right? So on our Christmas card, I added pattern paper that's 4 by 5 1/4 to an A2 card panel. And then I'm going to put a circle where the legs are going to swing right on that pattern paper. I'll tape the 2 together and add that same circle on the back of the tree and her skirt. That way I know how far down my foam can go. I cut a little circle of foam, I stuck it in the hole for the legs, and then I'm going to find the other pair of legs, and once again, I'm going to double this up. I promise you guys, it is worth it. It's worth it. It just swings so much better with that little bit of extra weight. If you like these Dancin sorts of pieces and you're like, but yeah, Sarah, I'm not using ephemera, I will link to all of the Dancin pieces from Spellbinders because they're so much fun. And a lot of them aren't even that fiddly. Like there's not that much to do to put them together. The Halloween ones in particular were some of my favorites. Okay, so I've added just a little bit of foam onto the left-hand side of this Merry Christmas since the tree is popped up a little bit. And that finishes off card number 5. This is card number 6. And I don't know if it's the colors, if it's the cocktail, if it's that pumpkin, but I love this one. The pattern paper is from scrapbook.com. They have this really great Halloween pad. So again, I cut that down to 4 by 5 1/4, and I stole this little window box from the Windows with a View collection, and I just trimmed off that little piece at the bottom. I want a shelf for my cocktail. I suppose it could have just been floating there. It is Halloween after all, but this felt like more fun. And so I cut it out of silver. I'm going to set my little cocktail right on top of that. And then I can glue the rest of my pieces down. This is not one of the Dancin girls. There is one. You could. I didn't. I didn't feel like it needed it. It's super fun. And then I will clip off that little silver shelf that's hanging off the side. And for both of these, I've just kept them really simple, right? Like not everything, I have to tell myself this all the time, not everything has to be some big fancy something, right? I would love to hear from all of you when you are making cards, not just watching cards, but making cards for yourself. How complicated are they? Do you like a bunch of die cuts? Do you like interactive cards? Do you like ephemera? I also would love to know which of these 6 cards is your favorite, and if you've tried any of the Dancin dies before. I have a bunch of ideas for Quick Card Monday videos coming out, some of which I have already filmed. I promise there are more card sketches coming, but I also just have some really easy backgrounds and things that we're going to turn into some simple, beautiful cards. I hope you've been enjoying Quick Card Monday as much as I have. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.